That morning, a young waitress walked into the restaurant like she always did. Same uniform, same smile. She had no idea this ordinary day was about to become unforgettable. In one corner, two well-dressed men sat quietly finishing their breakfast. They were calm, polite, and hardly spoke. When it was time to leave, the first man placed some cash on the table. The waitress picked it up and her breath caught. It was $400. Surprised, she looked up, but the man simply nodded and walked toward the door. Then the second man stopped in front of her. He gently placed $500 into her hand and said softly, "Stay strong. Better days are coming." Before she could say anything, he turned and left. In the kitchen, away from everyone, she stood still. Her hands were shaking. Tears filled her eyes. "Why would strangers do this for me?" she whispered. A few minutes later, the manager called her aside. He handed her an envelope. Inside was another $800. "Take it," he said kindly. "Sometimes help comes when you least expect it." Confused, she shook her head. "Sir, I didn't ask anyone for help. I just came to work like every other day." The manager smiled gently. "My friends overheard your phone call this morning. You were talking about your mother, how she's in critical condition. No insurance, no savings. You didn't complain, but your pain was clear." She broke down completely. A week later, her mother returned home alive, smiling, recovering. When the waitress came back to work, something had changed. Not her uniform, not her job, but her eyes carried a quiet light. She had learned a powerful truth. When you have no one left to lean on, God moves silently, touching the hearts of strangers who hear the pain you never say out loud. Sometimes hope arrives, not because you asked, but because someone felt your soul. Kevin was a rich man who lived in a large mansion. He had everything: wealth, comfort, and respect. To help manage his home, he hired a young woman who worked every day cooking meals, cleaning the house, and taking care of everything. She was paid very little, but she never complained. Every night after dinner, Kevin noticed that she carefully packed the leftover food into a black bag before leaving. One day, Kevin began to suspect that she was stealing from him. Curious and upset, he decided to follow her silently. What he discovered shocked him. The woman walked a long distance and stopped at a small, broken-down house. Inside were her 3 young children. She took the leftover food from the bag and fed them with a smile, even though she herself ate very little. They were living in poverty, and that food was often the only proper meal her children had each day. Kevin stood outside, overwhelmed with guilt and sadness. He realized how wrong he had been to judge her. The next morning, without saying a word to her, Kevin bought bags of groceries: rice, vegetables, milk, fruits, and food for the children. He went straight to her home. When she opened the door and saw him, she was frightened, thinking she might lose her job. Instead, Kevin placed the groceries inside her house, sat down on the floor with her children, and shared a simple meal with them. Tears filled her eyes as she understood his kindness. From that day on, Kevin made sure her family never went hungry again. He increased her salary, helped pay for the children's education, and supported them with dignity and respect. Kevin learned that true wealth is not measured by money, but by compassion. And one quiet act of kindness changed many lives forever.
Everyone at the table chose money except one quiet woman. A powerful businesswoman, wealthy, respected, but completely alone, invited her entire team to dinner. Before the food arrived, she said, "Tonight you'll choose your reward." On the table were 2 things, an envelope full of cash and a small book. One by one, they laughed, smirked, and reached for the money. Then the youngest woman on the team stepped forward, quiet, overlooked. "Take the money," the host said. "It will help you more." The quiet woman smiled. Money helps for a moment. Wisdom lasts a lifetime. She chose the book. Inside were 2 envelopes. The first held 10 times more money than anyone else received. The second, legal papers transferring the entire estate to her. True wisdom always rewards patience. Would you choose the book?
She gave a stranger a ride to work, and that one small act saved her life the same night. Early one morning, a young woman named Lily rushed to her office, coffee in hand, mind already full of deadlines. As she stopped at a red light, she noticed something that made her pause. A waiter in a worn uniform was sprinting toward a bus stop. The bus doors closed. It pulled away. The man stood there, breathless, staring down the empty road. Missing that bus meant missing work, and maybe losing his job. Lily rolled down her window. "Hey," she called gently. "Where are you headed?" The waiter hesitated, then said, "Downtown, I work at a restaurant." "I'm going that way," she smiled. "Hop in, I'll give you a ride." Relief flooded his face. During the drive, he kept thanking her. When they arrived, he pulled out a few coins. "At least take the bus fare," he said. Lily shook her head. "Keep it. Just be on time." The waiter smiled and said quietly, "Someday I hope I can return this kindness." She waved and drove off, never thinking about it again. That evening, Lily went out with her co-workers to a bar restaurant to celebrate the end of a long week. Laughter filled the night. Drinks kept coming. Too many. By the time they left, Lily was dizzy and disoriented. Her friends were distracted, calling rides, saying quick goodbyes. That's when a stranger approached. "Need a lift?" he asked smoothly. In her confused state, Lily nodded. Suddenly, a voice cut through the noise. "Hey, stop!" A waiter came running from across the street. It was him. The same waiter. "I saw her," he said firmly. "She's not okay. Leave!" Startled and exposed, the stranger backed away and disappeared into the crowd. The waiter turned to Lily, steadying her. "Are you all right?" Her vision cleared just enough for recognition to hit. "It's you," she whispered. He nodded. "You gave me a ride this morning. I told you I'd return the kindness." He helped her call a safe ride and stayed until she was secure. That night, Lily learned something she would never forget. Kindness always comes back. Sometimes when your life depends on it.
Everyone ignored the old janitor, except one kid. He cleaned the same office building every night.
Quiet, invisible, unnoticed.
One day, a young employee dropped his lunch, embarrassed, hungry. The janitor smiled and gave him his own food.
"Eat, I already had mine." What the kid didn't know.
That was the janitor's only meal that day. Years passed. The kid became the CEO of that company. On his first day in charge, he called one employee to his office. The janitor walked in, confused.
Nervous.
The CEO stood up and said, "You fed me when I had nothing. Now let me take care of you." Kindness never gets forgotten.
A dying billionaire tested strangers with $100 or a Bible. What happened next shocked everyone on the street. Alex was rich beyond measure, but fate was cruel. A serious illness meant he didn't have much time left. Before he died, he wanted to give his wealth to someone who truly deserved it. So he stood on a busy street. In one hand, $100 cash, in the other, a Bible. One by one, people rushed past. Every single person grabbed the money. No hesitation. No second thought. Alex felt disappointed until a homeless woman stopped. She looked tired, hungry, and broken by life, yet she gently chose the Bible. Shocked, Alex asked, "Why would you choose the Bible? You need money more than anyone." She smiled and said, "Money can buy comfort, but not peace. When you choose God, you choose wisdom, and everything else follows." Alex's hands trembled. He asked her to open the Bible. Inside was $1 million check. She smiled again and said, "I chose God, and God gave me money." Not everyone who looks poor lacks wealth. Some are rich in wisdom. What would you choose, money or wisdom? Comment below. The doctors said he wouldn't survive the night. But what no one knew was that he'd already uncovered a secret that would destroy his wife. When his wife entered the hospital room, she saw the nurse whispering to him, "Get away from him. You just want his money." The nurse didn't argue. She just walked away. Days later, the man died. At the inheritance reading, the wife waited confidently. The lawyer said everything goes to the nurse. The wife screamed, "I'm calling the police." Then the lawyer read a letter. "My wife was poisoning me. Kindness was worth everything. Would you have done the same?" Comment below.
A poor man stood outside a subway station counting his money. $1. That was all he had left. A stranger rushed up to him and whispered, "Please, I need $1. It's urgent." The man hesitated. No food tonight, no ride home. People walked past. No one stopped. Slowly, the man handed over the $1. The stranger stared at him, then smiled. "Why did you help me?" he asked. The man replied, "Because if I were desperate, I'd hope someone would help me too." The stranger reached into his coat and handed him an envelope. Inside was $10,000 and a note. Money tests greed. Kindness reveals wisdom. The man looked up. The stranger was gone. And the man realized he wasn't given money. He was chosen.
She had just gotten into an Uber when an old man hurried over, panic written all over his face. "Please," he pleaded, his voice shaking. "My wife just had a heart attack. I need to get to the hospital right now." The driver shook his head immediately. "Sorry, I already have a passenger." "I'll pay double," the old man begged. Before the driver could respond, the woman snapped impatiently, "Wait, I have an interview. I'm due there in 10 minutes. Helpless, the old man slowly let go of the car door. As the Uber pulled away, the woman glanced back. She saw him standing alone on the roadside, lost, desperate, and terrified. Her heart softened. "Stop the car," she said suddenly. "Please turn around." The driver hesitated but turned back. When they reached the old man, she got out and said firmly, "Sir, take the car. You need it more than I do." "Thank you. Thank many so much," the old man said, climbing in as fast as he could. The woman waited on the street, but not a single taxi passed by. With no other choice, she ran, breathless, all the way to the company. When she finally reached the interview room, the hiring manager looked at her coldly. "You're 45 minutes late." "There was an emergency," she said, choking up. "Please let me explain." The manager waved his hand impatiently. "Fine. Let me see your resume first." The woman froze. "I left my resume in the Uber." "Get out!" The manager snapped, his face darkening. Downstairs, she finally broke down in tears. "I've been job hunting for 6 months," she sobbed. "I've finally got a chance, and I ruined it myself. I'm so useless." Just then, her phone rang. "Hello," a calm voice said. "This is Human Resources from Global Holdings Group. Please come to our office right away." She was stunned. There was no time to ask questions, so she rushed over. When she entered the office, she stopped in her tracks. The general manager was holding her resume. That's my resume?" she asked in shock. He nodded. "Yes, you left it in the Uber." Then he smiled gently. "The old man you helped, that was my father. He told me only one thing. This girl deserves a chance. Go to HR and complete your onboarding. Kindness always finds its way back. If you believe that good deeds are never wasted, leave a heart in a comment."
It was the kind of cold evening that made your teeth chatter, and Lily was late for the bus. She hurried down the street, hands shoved in her pockets, when she noticed a man huddled in the shadows under a flickering street lamp. His coat was torn and he shivered like he might crumble into the pavement. Most people would have passed him by. But something about the way he looked at the ground, ashamed and exhausted, made Lily stop. She dug into her backpack and pulled out her scarf. "Here," she said, holding it out. "You might need this." The man looked up, startled. I don't want trouble." His voice was hoarse, almost like he hadn't spoken in days. "You won't get any from me," Lily said, smiling. "Just take it." He hesitated, then slowly draped it around his shoulders, and just like that, something in the air shifted. A week later, Lily saw the same man again, but this time he was standing outside the corner store with a large box. I have something for you," he said, handing it to her. Inside was a small, hand-carved figure of a bird. "You gave me hope when no one else would. I want you to have this." The streetlight flickered above them. Lily realized kindness wasn't just about giving. It was about the ripple it caused, sometimes in ways you'd never expect. That one small scarf had sparked something bigger, a quiet magic in the middle of a harsh city night. And in that moment, Lily understood that even the smallest act could carry someone through the darkest cold.
If you return that bag, We are no longer husband and wife. Rain slammed against the windshield as Rena's words echoed inside the car. She stared at the black briefcase in Mark's hands like it was a ticking bomb. "Do you remember the eviction notice on our door?" she shouted. "Do you remember the medical bills we couldn't pay?" They were parked behind a gas station in suburban Cleveland. The car felt suffocating. Even breathing sounded loud. Earlier that night, Mark had found the briefcase on a bench at a bus stop. Inside were thick stacks of cash, documents, an ID card, and an address in an upscale neighborhood. "This money could erase all our debts," Rena whispered. "No one saw you pick it up, right?" Mark stared at the photo on the ID. A white-haired old man. "This isn't ours," he said quietly. "What if this is his life savings? What if it's for surgery?" Rena slammed the dashboard. "And what about us? Do you think the landlord cares if we're good people? Does the bank?" Silence filled the car. Then Mark opened the door. "Mark, where are you going?" Rena screamed. "To find him," he said. "I'd rather stay poor than become a thief." Clutching the briefcase, Mark disappeared into the rain. But an hour later, soaked to the bone, he stood in front of an old brick house across town. The door opened slowly. A white-haired man looked out, trembling. "Sir," Mark said, holding up the briefcase. "I believe you left this at the bus stop." The old man froze. His hands shook as he took it. "Oh my God, thank you," he whispered. "This is everything I have. It's for my surgery. I thought my life was over." "I couldn't keep it," Mark replied. "I know what it feels like to have nothing." The man's eyes filled with tears. "Do you have a job?" Mark forced a smile. "The factory laid us off last year. My wife and I are close to being evicted." The old man nodded slowly. "Wait here." Moments later, the door opened again. This time, a sharply dressed man stood beside him. "This is my son Daniel," the old man said. "He owns Dawson Logistics." Daniel extended his hand. "Most people would have taken the money and walked away," he said, "but you didn't." He handed Mark an envelope. "We were looking for an operations manager, someone who does the right thing even when no one is watching. If you want the job, Monday is your first day." When Mark returned to their tiny apartment, Rena was still sitting at the table, eyes swollen from crying. "You really gave the money back?" she whispered. Mark placed the envelope in front of her. Inside was a formal job offer and a check large enough to cover their rent and part of their debt. Tears streamed down her face. "I almost pushed you to do the wrong thing." Mark pulled her into his arms. "Sometimes the only thing we have left is choosing what's right," he said. "And sometimes God uses that small moment of honesty to open a door we never imagined."